All right, guys, we're live. Good morning. Money morning number 11. Topic is debt stacking. And debt stacking is an interesting one. Andrew, how you doing today?
What was that?
That was the ad running in front of the live broadcast on another screen because I'm a bit of a muppet and I forgot to mute that. But anyway, how are you this morning?
I'm good. I'm doing well. How are you doing today, Rich?
Yeah, doing good, man. So came across this phrase of debt stacking, and we basically settle debt for people. It works quite well. And we had some guy that was cross shopping, I don't know, our program versus what he thought might have been a better option, which is something called debt stacking. So I wanted to talk about it today, what it is, does it work, is it a viable option, kind of some stuff around that. If there's any questions, you guys can throw them in the chat. Morning, Juan, how you doing? And yeah, shouldn't be too long. Probably hopefully get this done in like 15 minutes. So what did you learn about debt stacking?
Well, essentially, debt stacking is a method for an individual to eliminate their debt based on their financial ability to pay more than their minimum payment requirement. So the first thing you will need to do is work out a budget, because in your budget, it will determine if you've got the ability to pay more towards your debts. And once that strategy has been determined, if you have a cash flow surplus to add towards your debts, you're basically tackling the debts one at a time, using the highest interest rate debt first as your target account. I'll let you continue if you had anything else that you wanted to add into there.
Yeah, so the comparison shopping that this gentleman was using was bizarre to me. The logic, anyway. I mean, I often say when I'm broadcasting that people are masters of complicating their lives and then justifying why they do it. And this seemed like a prime example. Dude had like $55,000 of credit card debt. Was just basically throwing minimum payments at them, and most of that goes to interest, so it barely pays down the principal. I think when we looked at one of his statements, it indicated it was going to take him 84 years to pay off that one debt just at the minimum monthly payments. And he was comparing shopping, basically debt stacking, which he thought would have been a better option. I'm laughing because it's literally funny, because we quoted a 4-year plan to get him out of debt for, I think it was around $31,000 or $32,000, which would have been super fast and highly effective and fixed his credit problems to a huge degree. He was looking to get into real estate and do some investing, but his strategy, or his comparison strategy, was if I throw as much money as possible at the highest interest rate, and on his list it was 28.8%. It was one of the retail store cards, so he was paying close to 30%. It was $11,000 balance, and he figured if he threw as much at the problem as possible through a debt stacking strategy, he'd be out of debt relatively quickly. But the problem with it was he didn't understand his budget. He wasn't going to have any disposable income to throw at the almost 30% retail store credit card to pay it down faster. He tried his bank to get a consolidation loan. They basically told him to pound sand. They wouldn't even look at him because he was carrying too much debt. See, we've done talks before on debt consolidation loans. So if you guys are unfamiliar with those, just go to the channel search bar and search Total Debt Freedom Debt Consolidation Loan. You can learn more about that. But people need to get through their head that you can't borrow your way out of debt. It's really not a viable solution to getting out of debt. Like, you can't dig yourself out of a hole by digging deeper, right? Like, that's the equivalent of what a debt consolidation loan is. And it's literally the same thing with this debt stacking strategy. It's silly. And if you look up on Google, like, you'll find sites like Primerica offering advice on on getting out of debt. That's the last place you should be looking for advice when it comes to getting out of debt. If you've got something that isn't working, you need to get help, right? There's programs in Canada like bankruptcy. Bankruptcy trustees are a viable option if you're like in a hole so deep you can't get out of it and you've got nothing, like you own nothing. Of course, we send people there from time to time if our program's not a good fit. But I mean, if you could do it on your own, you would have done so already. If you're looking at credit card statements that say that it's going to take you 80 plus years to pay off your credit card debt, it's time to do something about it that's serious. And debt stacking, in my view, is not a serious approach to getting out of debt. It's really just giving the credit card companies and banks and lenders more money towards interest as quickly as possible. Yeah, you might pay down the debt a little bit faster, but most people that have a very, very tight monthly budget, they don't have the disposable income. And I mean, here's a litmus test. If what you're doing is not paying down the balance, so if you've not seen the balances come down over the last 6 months, debt stacking ain't going to work, right? Because you would have already thrown the extra money at the debt problem by now to start bringing it down. So, I mean, you can try shopping around looking for rainbows, butterflies, and leprechauns to solve your problem, but at the end of the day, they probably don't exist. What answer?
Yeah, yeah, you've explained it quite well. I would just add that it's very important that you know and understand your budget. You need to know what's going on in terms of your income and your expenditures to be able to determine what you're going to do. If you have a very limited cash flow surplus, and cash flow is the term used to determine your income minus your expenses, the difference is your cash flow surplus. If you've got a very nominal cash flow surplus, a debt stacking strategy will not work. You need to have a significant amount of cash flow surplus in order for this type of plan to be successful. You also got to keep in mind that this is only viable for those that are looking to preserve their interest rates, or sorry, preserve their credit ratings as much as possible. So for those that have a very nominal income cash flow surplus and they're looking to eliminate their debt, but they're trying to preserve their credit rating, the debt stacking strategy won't work. You need a different type of strategy. Those are the strategies that we can offer you, a bankruptcy trustee can offer you, maybe even a credit counselor can offer you, but we've already discussed how those plans compare to ours and how we feel ours is the top type of option available to an individual. But again, it's all based on your cash flow surplus. You need to determine what that looks like. Because if you've only got $100 at the end of the month, that's not going to do anything to eliminate your debt. You need to have something substantial, $500, $700, $1,000. Then you're talking about the debt stacking strategy being something that you should be maybe considering.
And at the end of the day, I mean, if you've got the disposable income in your budget, a bank's going to lend you the money, right? I mean, if you've got $1,000 in disposable income that you're sitting on in cash, you put under the mattress, or I don't know, you blow on entertainment or something silly. If you've got that on your budgeting sheet, a bank will probably lend you the money at a far lower rate than these high risk lenders that are offering you advice on debt stacking at like 35%. Like, it's just bonkers to me. But that'll be the ultimate test. I mean, if you've asked your bank for help and they're like, "Yep, no problem, cool. Let's get you a brand new loan at a lower interest rate, and we'll slam it all into one payment." That's your way out, right? I mean, you should be paying a lot less than what you are on the credit cards. That's really the only time a debt consolidation loan works. But they always shut people down when their debt service ratio is too high and they don't have the disposable cash flow. Sorry, no, get lost, pound sand. You can go to a high risk lender and pay 40%. That's basically what your only option is, and that doesn't work. And then they go looking for other solutions like debt stacking. To me, it's like one of these fad diets. You hear all these guys that have these new diets all the time. It's this diet and that diet and this diet and that diet, and none of them work. It's like, stop eating, right? Like, that's what the problem is slow down on the caloric intake, go into a caloric deficit and stop eating. And that's how you lose the weight. It's the same thing with debt. Stop screwing around doing things that don't work. Find a solution that does work. The sequence of events should really be, if you're doing it on your own and you're seeing the balance come down, good, you don't need any help. If you're doing it on your own and it's not working greatly and you go to the bank and you look for a debt consolidation loan and they've shut you down, okay, I mean, you're obviously going to take the loan if it's a lower interest rate, but if they've shut you down, the next step in that sequence then becomes looking at a debt settlement proposal. If that doesn't fit and you've got way too much debt and no assets, a bankruptcy is probably the next best thing to that. Like, there's a flow in the sequence, and it's part of the process that we go through when people talk to one of our debt consultants, is walking them through the ways that people can get out of debt. And we always take a close look at your budget. I mean, the problem is most people don't understand their budget. It's just one of those simple things. And you can get budgeting guides and budgeting apps. And people sometimes ask me, "Hey, Rich, do you guys have a budgeting app or something like that I can download?" There's 500 of them for free on the App Store, right? So figure out what your cash flow looks like monthly. And if you don't have the disposable income and it's not paying down the debt, and your statements say it's going to take you 84 years, guess what, guys? It's time to wake up and look for a real solution that's going to work. And that's what we do. You can take a look at ours. And if it's not a good solution, we'll probably send you in the right direction that'll get you that way. And it might even be a bankruptcy. But we will give you the right advice. Anyway, all right. I don't think we need to go on too long about this one. You want to kind of wrap it up on that note, or do you want to close it off with anything else?
I was going to ask or suggest we explain how, or the process involved with the stacking
Yeah, sure.
procedure.
I want to hear your interpretation because I'm not keen on it. Like I took a good look at it, and there's nothing there that really made a lot of sense. But go ahead.
Yeah. So as I said it earlier, the strategy could be successful for those with I would say, significant or sufficient cash flow surplus. But the process involved in this strategy is you write down on a piece of paper or on some kind of computer device, whatever it happens to be. You just list your debts in sequence of the highest interest rate at the top, the lowest interest rate at the bottom, and the amount of that debt. So it's the name of the creditor, the amount of the interest rate, and then the amount you owe to that creditor. The strategy is the top creditor is your target creditor until you've eliminated that creditor. You are applying your monthly minimum payment demands from each of those banks to each one of those accounts. Whatever your disposable cash flow surplus is after you've taken care of your living expenditures and then your payments to those creditors, let's just assume it's $200. You then apply that $200 extra towards your target account, which is your top account on your list with the highest interest rate. As your balance is coming down and that debt is eliminated, you then move to the next target account. What you're also doing is you're applying the amount that you're applying to the top account with the highest interest rate. Let's just assume that monthly payment was $100. You're applying that $100 to the extra $200 to the next account on your list with the second highest interest rate, and so on and so on. So as you move down the list, what you're doing is you're freeing up the payments from the other accounts and you're applying them to the next account, and your payments are getting bigger and bigger until you get to your last account and your smallest interest rate is paid off. It can take a few months depending on how much you owe. It could take a few years or decades depending on, again, how much you owe and what your cash flow surplus looks like. That's my interpretation.
Yeah, I don't think there's any coincidence that you can't find any debt stacking calculators online that analyze the total length of time to pay it off based on the interest rate, just because I think they're probably closer to decades, than it is months or even years. Again, I mean, if you've got the cash flow to do something like that looks like debt stacking, you'll probably qualify for a low interest debt or a lower interest than your credit card's debt consolidation loan because you've got the cash flow, and that would be a far better option than throwing money at 28.8%, for example. But that's just my view on it. Got a lot of guys watching from the States, San Francisco, Alabama. We're a Canadian company, and nobody in Canada wants to say hi to us in the chat. Well, we'll leave it at that. We'll come back at you with another topic in another Saturday or two, maybe, depending on our schedule and what comes up. But yeah, make sure you subscribe to the channel, hit the notification bell for live events. If you're watching the recording, thanks for checking it out. Leave a comment below if you got a topic suggestion or something you're looking for clarity on. If you have over $15,000 in credit card debt and you're in Canada, or you're an expat, you're somewhere else in the world, but it's Canadian debt, we can certainly help you out and give you a free quote. If our program's not a good fit, we'll send you somewhere else that could certainly help you out. But there's a link in the live chat and below. It's just totaldebtfreedom.ca. Closing thoughts, Andrew, aside from see you later?
No, that's it. We'll enjoy your weekend and we'll connect next week.
All right, let's get outside and enjoy the summer. It's pretty short here in Canada.
Yeah.
22nd. Let's get out there and have some fun, man. See you guys later.
All right, take care.